My name is Robin, 61 years old. Never thought I would be typing the words "understood" to my only son, Marcus, after receiving his letter, telling me not to come to our family reunion. The pain piercing my heart as I read those words cannot be described. What Marcus doesn't know is that I spent my entire life building a $1.5 million trust fund for him. All those years of sacrifice just for this moment. If you're watching this from somewhere with family drama of your own, hit that like button and subscribe. Because what happened next taught me that sometimes the greatest love is knowing when to walk away. I grew up in a middle-class family in Chicago during the 60s and 70s. My parents worked hard to provide for me and my two sisters. Dad was a high school teacher, while Mom ran a small flower shop downtown. We weren't rich by any means, but we never went hungry and always had what we needed. The values my parents instilled in me were simple: work hard, be honest, and family comes first. Always. I met Thomas during my sophomore year at Northwestern University. He was studying engineering while I was pursuing a degree in finance. Our connection was immediate and powerful. He had this way of looking at me that made me feel like I was the only person in the room. We got married 2 years after graduation, both of us, 24, and ready to build a life together. Thomas and I dreamed of having a big family, at least 4 kids running around our home. But life had other plans. For years, we struggled with infertility. Every negative pregnancy test felt like a personal failure. Every announcement from friends and family about their growing families was a knife to the heart. We tried everything. Fertility treatments, special diets, acupuncture, you name it. The emotional toll was devastating, and the financial strain wasn't easy either. After 6 years of trying countless doctor visits and 3 miscarriages, our miracle finally happened. I still remember staring at that positive pregnancy test, afraid to believe it was real. The pregnancy was difficult. I was put on bed rest for the last 2 months, and Thomas took on everything: cooking, cleaning, working, and taking care of me. When Marcus was finally born, we both cried. 7 pounds, 6 ounces of perfection. The moment I held him in my arms, I knew I would do anything for this child. From day one, Marcus became the center of our universe. Thomas and I rearranged our entire lives around him. I cut back on my working hours at the financial firm where I had just started to build a career. Thomas turned down a promotion that would have required extensive travel. Every decision we made, we asked ourselves, is this what's best for Marcus? Our life was happy, but not without challenges. Money was often tight. We lived in a modest 2-bedroom apartment until Marcus was 5. Thomas worked long hours to provide while I juggled part-time work and taking care of our son. Despite the struggles, those were some of the happiest years of my life. The 3 of us were a team, a unit unbreakable. Or so I thought. When Marcus turned 12, our world shattered. Thomas started experiencing persistent back pain. For months, doctors dismissed it as stress or muscle strain. By the time they finally ran the right tests, the cancer had already spread. Stage 4, pancreatic cancer. The prognosis was grim from the start. Thomas fought bravely for 8 months. I watched my strong, vibrant husband wither away, becoming a shadow of himself. Marcus would sit by his father's hospital bed doing homework or just holding his hand. The bond between father and son was beautiful and heartbreaking to witness. I tried my best to shield Marcus from the worst of it, but there's only so much you can protect a child from when their father is dying before their eyes. The night before Thomas passed, he made me promise 2 things to make sure Marcus knew how much his father loved him every single day, and to ensure that Marcus would be financially secure. I vowed to fulfill both promises, not knowing how challenging that would be as a newly single mother with a grieving child. After the funeral, reality set in hard and fast. I was now solely responsible for raising our son and providing for our future. I went back to work full-time at the financial firm, often taking on extra projects to make ends meet. The long hours were difficult, but they taught me valuable skills about investing and financial planning that would serve me well later. At home, Marcus and I learned to navigate our grief together. Some nights, we would sit on the couch looking through old photo albums, sharing memories of Thomas. Other nights, one or both of us would break down crying. It wasn't easy, but slowly we created a new normal. Our bond grew stronger through the shared pain. Marcus was my rock, just as much as I was his. As Marcus entered his teenage years, I became determined to build a financial safety net for him. Working in finance gave me insight into smart investing strategies. I started small, setting aside $50 from each paycheck, then $100, then more as I received promotions. I lived frugally, foregoing vacations and new clothes to maximize what I could save. Every bonus went straight into investments. By the time Marcus was 16, I had started a formal trust fund for him. My goal was to ensure he would have the resources for college, starting a business, buying his first home, whatever path he chose. I wanted to fulfill Thomas's dying wish that our son would be taken care of. The trust was my labor of love, growing year by year as I added to it and made smart investment choices. It represented every overtime hour worked, every promotion earned, every sacrifice made. Through those years after Thomas died, Marcus and I developed rituals that kept us close. Sunday morning pancakes, movie nights on Fridays, annual camping trips to Michigan in the summer. We talked about everything: school friends, girls, his future dreams. I made sure he knew he could come to me with anything, and he did. When he had his heart broken for the first time at 15, he cried on my shoulder. When he got accepted to his dream college at 18, I was the first person he called. We were not just mother and son. We were best friends, confidants, and each other's biggest supporters. Those years weren't perfect by any means. We had our arguments and disagreements like any family. Marcus went through typical teenage rebellions, staying out too late, experimenting with things he shouldn't. But underneath it all was a foundation of love and trust that I believed nothing could shake. How wrong I would turn out to be. 7 years after Thomas passed away, I met Alan at a charity event for cancer research. He was kind, thoughtful, and understood my grief in a way few others could. Having lost his wife to breast cancer 3 years earlier, our relationship developed slowly. I was cautious about introducing anyone new into Marcus's life, but when I finally did, it seemed to go well. Marcus was 19 and in his first year of college when Alan and I married. He gave a beautiful speech at our small wedding, saying he was happy I had found someone to share my life with. He even joked that it was about time I had someone else to watch basketball with, since he was tired of pretending to understand the game just for my sake. Alan moved into our home, and for a while, everything seemed perfect. I finally felt like I could breathe again, after years of carrying the weight of single parenthood alone. The first signs of change were subtle. During Marcus's sophomore year of college, his calls home became less frequent. When he did call, our conversations grew shorter, more superficial. I attributed it to him building his own life, which was natural and healthy. When he came home for holidays, he spent more time with friends than family. Again, I told myself this was normal for a 20-year-old. I didn't want to be the clingy mother who couldn't let go. That same year, Marcus met Jasmine in his economics class. The first time he mentioned her, I could hear the excitement in his voice. When he brought her home for spring break, I was thrilled to meet the woman who made my son so happy. Jasmine was beautiful, intelligent, and ambitious. She came from a wealthy family in Connecticut with connections and opportunities that Marcus had never been exposed to. I was impressed by her poise and confidence, though something about the way she looked at our modest home made me slightly uncomfortable. During that visit, I noticed how Marcus seemed different around Jasmine. He was more formal, less like the relaxed, goofy kid I knew. He corrected my grammar once at dinner, something he'd never done before. When I brought out old photo albums to show Jasmine, Marcus quickly shut them away, saying they were embarrassing. It hurt, but I smiled through it, not wanting to create tension. As their relationship progressed, Marcus's visits home became even less frequent. He had reasonable excuses: summer internships, study groups, Jasmine's family events. When I suggested visiting him at school, there was always some reason why that weekend wasn't good. Still, I made efforts to stay connected. I sent care packages for finals week, called regularly, even when he rarely picked up, and continued to build his trust fund, which had grown substantially thanks to some smart investments and my promotion to senior financial advisor. For Marcus's graduation, I drove 6 hours to his university, excited to celebrate this milestone. Alan couldn't come due to a work commitment, so I went alone. The ceremony was beautiful, but afterward, I felt like an outsider. Marcus spent most of the time with Jasmine's family, who had reserved a private room at an expensive restaurant for the celebration. I was invited as an afterthought, sitting at the end of the table, while Jasmine's parents dominated the conversation about Marcus's future plans. That evening in my hotel room, I cried for the first time in years over my relationship with my son. Something was changing, slipping away, and I couldn't grasp what or why. I called Alan, who comforted me, and suggested I give Marcus space to figure out his adult life. "He'll come back to you," Alan assured me. "The bond between you two is too strong to break." I wanted desperately to believe him. A year after graduation, Marcus proposed to Jasmine. I learned about it on Facebook before he called me. When he finally did, his excitement was evident, but our conversation was brief. "We're thinking about a small wedding," he said. "Probably just close family." I offered to help with planning or finances, but he declined, saying Jasmine's parents had it covered. The wedding was elaborate and expensive, nothing like the small event Marcus had described. It was held at a vineyard in Napa Valley with over 200 guests. Most were Jasmine's family and friends. My side had less than 20 people. During the reception, I barely saw Marcus. When it came time for the mother-son dance, the one tradition I had been looking forward to, the DJ announced they would be skipping it due to time constraints. I watched as Jasmine danced with her father to a song that went on for nearly 5 minutes. At one point during the reception, I overheard Jasmine's mother talking to another guest. "We're so happy Marcus will be working for my husband's firm," she said. "It's about time he had some proper guidance." The comment stung. Had I not provided proper guidance? Had I failed as a mother? Somehow I left the wedding feeling like a stranger to my own son. The boy who once cried on my shoulder and shared all his secrets now barely had time for a quick hug before being whisked away to take photos with his new family. On the flight home, I told myself I was overreacting. Marriage changes relationships. Marcus was starting his own family now. Things would settle into a new normal, and we would find our way back to each other. I held on to that hope like a lifeline. After the wedding, Marcus and Jasmine moved to Seattle for their jobs. He worked at her father's investment firm while she took a position at a prestigious marketing agency. The distance made staying connected even more challenging, but I was determined to maintain our relationship. I scheduled regular phone calls, marking them in my calendar like important business meetings. Most went to voicemail. When Marcus did answer, our conversations rarely lasted more than 10 minutes. He always seemed distracted or in a rush. "Sorry, Mom, I've got to run to a meeting," or "Jasmine and I have dinner reservations. Can I call you back later?" The callbacks rarely came. For his 30th birthday, I flew to Seattle without telling him. I thought a surprise visit would be a nice gesture, a chance for us to reconnect. I booked a hotel downtown and called him the morning of my arrival. "Mom, you should have told me you were coming," he said, sounding more annoyed than pleased. "We have plans all weekend with Jasmine's college friends who are in town." I suggested breakfast the next morning before their plans began. He hesitated before agreeing. We met at a cafe near my hotel. Marcus checked his watch repeatedly during our meal. The conversation was strained, full of small talk about the weather and his job. When I asked more personal questions about his life or marriage, his answers were vague and brief. Before leaving, I gave him his birthday gift, a watch that had belonged to his father. Thomas had always planned to give it to Marcus when he turned 30. "Thanks," he said, barely glancing at it before putting it in his pocket. That night in my hotel room, I cried myself to sleep. The next morning, I changed my flight and went home early. Alan was sympathetic but also pragmatic. "Maybe it's time to accept that your relationship with Marcus has changed," he said gently. "Adult children create their own lives. It doesn't mean he doesn't love you." 3 months later, I received a text message from Marcus. "Jasmine is pregnant. You're going to be a grandmother." Not a call, just a text. I immediately called him, tears of joy streaming down my face. He sounded happy, but distant. I asked about the due date, how Jasmine was feeling, whether they knew the gender yet. His answers were short, as if I was interviewing him rather than sharing in a joyous family moment. "We'd appreciate it if you didn't announce this on social media yet," he said before ending the call. "Jasmine wants to control how the news gets out." I hadn't even thought about social media. I just wanted to celebrate with my son. When their daughter Lily was born, I flew to Seattle again. This time, I gave plenty of notice and booked an Airbnb instead of a hotel, not wanting to impose. At the hospital, I brought gifts for both the baby and Jasmine. Marcus met me in the lobby instead of taking me directly to Jasmine's room. "She's resting right now," he explained. "You can see them both for a little while, but not too long." The visit lasted 20 minutes. Jasmine remained in bed, barely acknowledging my presence while I awkwardly cooed over my granddaughter. I wasn't allowed to hold her because she had just fallen asleep. When a nurse came in to check Jasmine's vitals, Marcus used it as an opportunity to escort me out. "We'll FaceTime soon so you can see more of Lily," he promised. That FaceTime call never happened. Over the next 2 years, my attempts to be involved in Lily's life were consistently thwarted. I sent birthday and Christmas gifts that were never acknowledged. I offered to visit and help with childcare, but was told they had it covered. I suggested they visit us for holidays, but there was always a reason why they couldn't travel. Meanwhile, I saw photos on Facebook of Lily spending time with Jasmine's parents, vacations to Hawaii weekends at their lake house, professional photo shoots with Grandma and Grandpa Sullivan. It became clear that there was a hierarchy of grandparents, and I was firmly at the bottom. Thanksgiving of that year, I decided to make one more effort. I called Marcus and asked directly if Alan and I could come for the holiday. "Actually, Mom, we're going to Jasmine's parents' place in Aspen," he said. "Maybe next year." I knew then that next year would never come. "Marcus," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "I feel like there's something wrong between us. Can we talk about it? I miss you, and I want to be part of Lily's life." There was a long pause before he responded. "There's nothing to talk about, Mom. We're just busy building our lives here. Jasmine's parents are closer and can help more regularly. It's not personal." But it felt intensely personal. Every missed call, every declined visit, every photo of Lily with her other grandparents felt like a deliberate exclusion. I began to wonder if I had done something specific to cause this rift, or if it was simply that I couldn't compete with the wealth and status of Jasmine's family. During one particularly low moment, I considered stopping my contributions to Marcus's trust fund. It had grown to over $1.5 million by then. But I quickly dismissed the thought. The money wasn't about buying my son's affection. It was about keeping a promise to Thomas and providing security for our child, regardless of how he treated me. At least, that's what I told myself at the time. As the months passed, I tried to find peace with the situation. I focused on my job, my marriage to Alan, and my friendships. I joined a book club and started taking pottery classes. On the surface, I was adapting to this new reality. But inside, the pain of being estranged from my only child was a constant dull ache that never truly subsided. It was a Tuesday morning when I received a call from my cousin Sarah. Have you heard about the family reunion Marcus is organizing? She asked. The question caught me completely off guard. I hadn't heard anything about a reunion. What family reunion? I asked, my heart already beginning to race. Oh, Sarah's voice faltered. I just got an email about it. It's happening next month at some resort in California. I assumed you knew since it's your son organizing it. After hanging up with Sarah, I sat at my kitchen table in stunned silence. My own son was planning a family reunion and hadn't even told me about it. I checked my email spam folder, even my physical mailbox, thinking perhaps the invitation had gotten lost. Nothing. With shaking hands, I called Marcus. The call went straight to voicemail. I left a message trying to sound casual. Hi Marcus, it's Mom. I heard something about a family reunion from Sarah. Give me a call when you can. Next, I texted him. Just heard about the family reunion. Looking forward to getting the details. 3 days passed with no response. I called again and again it went to voicemail. This time, I didn't leave a message. The silence was deafening and telling. Finally, on the 4th day, my phone rang. It was Marcus. Mom, he said, his voice tight and formal. I got your messages. I was just wondering about this family reunion I heard about, I said, trying to keep my tone light. Sarah mentioned it, but I haven't received any information. There was a pause, then Marcus cleared his throat. It's just a small gathering, mostly Jasmine's side and a few of our close friends. But Sarah said it was a family reunion, I pressed. And she's from my side of the family. We invited a few people from Dad's side who've stayed close to us over the years, he said. Look, Mom, it's really more of a vacation with friends than a traditional family reunion. I didn't think you'd be interested. The implication was clear. I wasn't invited. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. I see, was all I could manage to say. I've got to go. We can talk more later, Marcus said, and before I could respond, he had ended the call. I sat in my living room, phone in hand, for what felt like hours. The pain was physical, a crushing weight on my chest, making it difficult to breathe. How had we come to this? What had I done that was so terrible that my own son would deliberately exclude me from a family event? A week later, a letter arrived in the mail. The envelope was crisp and formal, with my name and address typed rather than handwritten. Inside was a single page on expensive stationery. Dear Robin, it began. No, Mom, just my first name. It has come to our attention that you've been inquiring about our upcoming gathering. To be clear, please don't try coming to the family reunion. After much discussion, Jasmine and I have decided that it would be best if we minimized contact going forward. We are cutting ties. This decision wasn't made lightly, but we believe it's necessary for our family's well-being. Respectfully, Marcus. I read the letter once, twice, 3 times, each reading more painful than the last. The formal tone, the lack of explanation, the collective we that made it clear this was as much Jasmine's decision as Marcus's. Perhaps more so. My hands trembled as I folded the letter and placed it back in its envelope. The pain came in waves. First, disbelief. This couldn't be real. The son I had raised, loved, sacrificed for couldn't be so cold, so cruel. Then came anger, hot, blinding rage at the injustice of it all. What right did he have to discard me like unwanted furniture? What had I ever done except love him unconditionally? The anger gave way to deep, gutting sadness. I curled up on my bed and wept for hours. Alan found me there when he came home from work. He read the letter, then held me as fresh tears came. How could he do this? I kept asking. What did I do wrong? Alan had no answers, only comfort to offer. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced our house, rereading the letter, searching for clues for any explanation that might make sense of this rejection. I pulled out photo albums looking at pictures of Marcus growing up. The smiling toddler holding my hand, the proud 8-year-old showing off his science fair project, the teenager in his prom tux arm around my shoulder. Had it all been an illusion? Had the love I thought we shared been one-sided all along? I tried calling Marcus repeatedly the next day. My calls went straight to voicemail. I sent emails that received no response. I even reached out to Sarah to see if she could give me more information, but she knew nothing beyond the initial invitation she'd received. After exhausting all other options, I sat down and typed a simple text message to Marcus. Understood. That single word represented my surrender, my acceptance of his decision, no matter how much it broke my heart. I hit send, then turned off my phone and cried until I had no tears left. 2 days after receiving Marcus's letter, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt since this nightmare began. The initial shock had worn off, leaving behind a strange sense of calm and determination. As I sipped my morning coffee, I realized something fundamental: I deserved respect. I deserved better than to be discarded by the very person for whom I had sacrificed everything. For 3 decades, I had defined myself primarily as Marcus's mother. My decisions, my career, my savings, even my marriage to Alan had all been influenced by how they would affect my son. But who was I beyond that role? If Marcus no longer wanted me as his mother, who was Robin as a person in her own right? That afternoon, I called in sick to work for the first time in years and spent the day examining my life. I revisited old journals, looked through financial records, and thought deeply about my relationship with Marcus. Had I been too clingy, too permissive? Had I failed him in some fundamental way that justified this cruel rejection? After hours of soul-searching, I could find no grievous sin that warranted being cut off completely. Yes, I had made mistakes as a parent, what mother hasn't, but nothing that explained this level of estrangement. The more I reflected, the more I became convinced that this decision was less about me and more about Jasmine and her family's influence over Marcus. The next morning, I called my attorney Judith, who had helped me establish Marcus's trust fund years earlier. I need to discuss making changes to the trust, I told her. Can I come in today? Judith's office was in a sleek downtown building with views of the city skyline. She greeted me warmly, but her expression turned serious when I explained the situation and showed her Marcus's letter. I'm so sorry you're going through this, Robin, she said. From a legal standpoint, yes, you do have options. As the grantor of the trust, you retain certain rights depending on how the trust was structured. She pulled up the trust documents on her computer and reviewed them. This is what we call a revocable living trust. You established it for Marcus's benefit, but you maintain the right to modify or revoke it entirely. The money doesn't legally become his until the conditions for distribution are met, which in this case is when you pass away. So, I can change the beneficiary? I asked. Yes, Judith confirmed. You can remove Marcus as beneficiary and redirect the assets elsewhere, to another person, to multiple beneficiaries, or to a charitable organization. The choice is yours. I sat with that information for a moment, feeling the weight of the decision before me. What about tax implications or potential legal challenges? We spent the next hour discussing various scenarios and options. By the end of our meeting, I had made my decision. I want to remove Marcus as beneficiary and redirect the funds to a nonprofit organization that supports single mothers, I told Judith. Can you draw up the necessary paperwork? I can have it ready by tomorrow afternoon, she said. Are you certain about this? Robin, once the changes are executed, it will be difficult to reverse them. I'm certain, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. It's time I honored myself as much as I've honored others. Driving home from Judith's office, I felt lighter somehow. The pain was still there, but alongside it, was a newfound sense of self-respect. For too long, I had allowed myself to be taken for granted, to be pushed aside. No more. The next day, I returned to Judith's office and signed the papers changing the trust beneficiary. The $1.5 million that I had so carefully accumulated over decades would now go to the New Beginnings Foundation, an organization that provided housing education and support services to single mothers in need. It felt right, like honoring both my struggles and Thomas's memory in a way that would create real change in the world. As I left Judith's office, I switched my phone back on after having it off during our meeting. Immediately, it began buzzing with notifications. 6 missed calls from Marcus in the span of an hour, then 10 more over the next 2 hours. By the time I got home, the count had risen to 23 missed calls. I sat in my driveway staring at my phone as it buzzed with yet another incoming call from Marcus. I let it go to voicemail. Then I went inside, made myself a cup of tea, and listened to the messages he had left. The first few were angry. "Mom, what the hell did you do? I just got a call from the trust administrator saying there were changes made. Call me back immediately." His voice was sharp, demanding. The later messages became increasingly desperate. "Mom, please call me back. We need to discuss this. There must be some misunderstanding." The final messages contained outright pleading. "Mom, I'm sorry if I upset you. Please, let's talk about this like adults. The trust was for my future, for Lily's education. You can't just change that on a whim." By the end of the day, my phone showed 68 missed calls from Marcus. There were also 29 text messages ranging from angry demands to tearful apologies. Not once in any of the messages did he acknowledge the letter he had sent or his decision to cut ties with me. It was as if that had never happened. I didn't respond to any of his calls or messages. After years of being ignored, excluded, and finally rejected, I found power in my silence. For once, Marcus was the one desperately seeking connection, and I was the one setting boundaries. The irony wasn't lost on me, but I took no joy in it. There was only sadness for what had been lost, and resolve for what needed to happen next. The doorbell rang at 7:30 the next morning. I was already awake, having slept poorly. Through the peephole, I could see Marcus standing on my porch, his expression a mixture of anger and anxiety. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation that was about to occur, and opened the door. "What did you do?" Marcus demanded without preamble, pushing past me into the foyer. I closed the door calmly and turned to face my son. It had been nearly a year since I'd seen him in person. He looked tired with dark circles under his eyes and a tightness around his mouth that reminded me painfully of his father during difficult times. "Good morning to you too, Marcus," I said, keeping my voice level. "Would you like some coffee?" "I don't want coffee," he snapped. "I want an explanation. The trust administrator called yesterday saying you've removed me as beneficiary. Is that true?" I nodded. "Yes, it's true. The funds will now go to the New Beginnings Foundation." Marcus stared at me in disbelief. "You can't do that. That money was for me, for my family. You promised Dad you'd take care of me financially." "I did promise your father that." I agreed. "And I've kept that promise for 30 years. I put you through college debt-free. I helped with the down payment on your first house. I've been generous with gifts for you, for Jasmine, for Lily. But the trust was always legally mine to control." Marcus began pacing the living room, running his hands through his hair in frustration. "This is insane. You're punishing me because what? Because I don't call enough. Because I have my own life now." I sat down on the sofa and waited for him to do the same. When he remained standing, I simply looked up at him and said, I received your letter last week. He stopped pacing, a flash of something, guilt perhaps, crossing his face before his expression hardened again. That has nothing to do with this. It has everything to do with this, I countered. You made a choice, Marcus. You chose to cut ties with me, to exclude me from your life and from my granddaughter's life. Now I'm making choices too. That letter, he started, then paused. That wasn't entirely my idea. Whose idea was it then? Jasmine's, I asked, though I already knew the answer. Marcus sat down heavily in the armchair across from me. It's complicated. Jasmine feels that your influence isn't always helpful. She thinks clear boundaries are important. And what do you think? I asked, my heart breaking, even as I maintained my composure. He looked away. I think family dynamics change when you get married. Jasmine's parents have been incredibly supportive. They've helped us with connections, with opportunities I never would have had otherwise. They're offering Lily advantages that will set her up for life. And I haven't been supportive, I asked quietly. I, who worked 2 jobs sometimes to give you everything you needed, who never missed a school event, who nursed you through every illness, who celebrated every achievement, no matter how small. Marcus had the decency to look uncomfortable. That was different. That was just normal mom stuff. The dismissal of my decades of devotion as normal mom stuff struck me like a physical blow. And now you've decided you don't need a normal mom anymore. You've traded up for a more advantageous family connection. That's not fair, Marcus protested, but weakly. What's not fair? I said, my voice finally betraying some emotion, is receiving a formal letter from my only child, informing me that he's cutting ties with me. No explanation, no discussion, just a cold dismissal. As if 30 years of love and sacrifice meant nothing. Marcus leaned forward, his tone becoming placating. Look, maybe the letter was a mistake. We can work this out. But the trust fund, that's different. That money was promised to me. I've been counting on it for Lily's future. I studied my son's face, searching for any genuine remorse, any real desire to repair our relationship. All I saw was calculation, how to salvage the money without addressing the real issue. The letter wasn't a mistake, Marcus, I said firmly. It was a choice. You chose Jasmine and her family over me. I understand that she's your wife and her happiness should be important to you. What I don't understand is why that required cutting me out completely. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Jasmine felt you were too involved, too opinionated. She said you didn't respect our boundaries. What boundaries? I asked. The ones where I'm not allowed to see my granddaughter, where my calls go unanswered for weeks, where I learn about family reunions from distant relatives. He had no good answer for that. Instead, he circled back to the money. Mom, please reconsider the trust. That $1.5 million would secure Lily's education, her future. I shook my head. The money is going to help women who are struggling just like I struggled when your father died. Single mothers who need support and opportunity. I think your father would approve. Marcus's face darkened with anger. This is vindictive. You're punishing me because you're jealous of Jasmine's family. No, I said calmly. I'm respecting your decision to cut ties with me. You can't have it both ways, Marcus. You can't tell me I'm not welcome in your life, but still expect access to my money. So that's it, he demanded, standing up again. 30 years of saying you love me unconditionally, and now there's a condition. Keep you in our lives or lose the money. The money was never a guarantee, I replied. It was a gift I was planning to give someone who valued our relationship. You've made it clear that you don't. I'm simply redirecting my generosity to people who need it more. Marcus looked at me with a mixture of disbelief and contempt. I never thought you'd stoop to using money as a weapon. Dad would be ashamed. That hurt, but I didn't let it show. Your father wanted you to be a good man, Marcus. A man who honors his family, who shows gratitude and respect. I don't think he'd be proud of how you've treated me these past few years. For a moment, I thought I saw a flash of the real Marcus, my Marcus behind the angry facade. A glimpse of the sensitive boy who once cried when he accidentally hurt my feelings. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared. This isn't over, he said, moving toward the door. I'll be talking to my own attorneys about this. You're welcome to do that, I said. The trust is revocable, and I'm within my rights to change it. But you're welcome to try. Marcus paused at the door. You'll regret this, he said. When you're old and alone, you'll wish you hadn't driven away your only child. I met his gaze steadily. I'm not the one who sent a letter cutting ties, Marcus. That was your choice. I'm just respecting your decision and making my own choices accordingly. He left without another word, slamming the door behind him. I sat in the silence of my living room, trembling slightly from the adrenaline of the confrontation. There was pain, yes. A mother never stops loving her child no matter what. But alongside the pain was something else. The quiet dignity of finally standing up for myself after years of being taken for granted. In the months that followed my confrontation with Marcus, I began the slow process of rebuilding my life. Not as Marcus's mother primarily, but as Robin, a woman with her own identity, needs, and worth. The first step was therapy. Alan suggested it when he saw me struggling with bouts of depression and anxiety after Marcus left that day. My therapist, Dr. Rivera, helped me understand that my self-worth had become dangerously entangled with my role as a mother. You are more than what you give to others, she would remind me in our weekly sessions. You deserve care and respect in your own right. I also joined a support group for parents estranged from adult children. It was both heartbreaking and healing to hear stories similar to mine. Mothers and fathers grappling with rejection from the very people they had devoted their lives to raising. Some had clear explanations for the estrangement: addiction issues, religious differences, political divisions. Others like me were left with painful uncertainty about what had gone wrong. Estrangement rarely has a single cause, the group facilitator explained. Usually it's a complex interplay of factors, some within our control, many outside of it. The hardest part is accepting that we can't force reconciliation. We can only work on healing ourselves. That became my focus, healing myself. I rediscovered old passions that had fallen by the wayside during my years of single motherhood. I took a pottery class and found unexpected joy in creating with my hands. I joined a hiking group that explored local trails every weekend. I began volunteering at a community garden, finding peace in the simple act of helping things grow. Alan was my rock through all of this. He never criticized Marcus or pressured me to get over it faster than I was able. He simply provided consistent support, reminding me on bad days that I was loved and valued. Our marriage grew stronger as I learned to lean on him in ways I had previously reserved only for my son. 6 months after changing the trust, I reached out to the New Beginnings Foundation to see how I could get more involved. What started as occasional volunteer work soon became a regular commitment. Every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, I would mentor single mothers on financial literacy and career development. Many of these women reminded me of myself 30 years earlier. Overwhelmed, scared but determined to create better lives for their children. One woman in particular, Jessica, became a special connection for me. She had left an abusive marriage with her 3-year-old daughter and was struggling to rebuild from scratch. Over the course of a year, I helped her develop a resume, practice interview skills, and create a basic budget. When she landed a job as an administrative assistant at a law firm with growth potential, she hugged me with tears in her eyes. "You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself," she said. That moment healed something in me that I hadn't even realized was broken. Through my work with the foundation, I developed new friendships with women who understood struggle and resilience. We weren't bound by blood, but by shared experience and mutual respect. These relationships lacked the intensity of the mother-son bond, but they offered something different and valuable: reciprocity. These women saw me as a whole person, not just in relation to someone else. About 2 years after our confrontation, I received an email from Marcus. My heart raced when I saw his name in my inbox. The message was brief. "Mom, I thought you should know that Jasmine and I are getting divorced. It's been a difficult time, Marcus." I sat with that information for several days before responding. Part of me wanted to rush to his side to be the supportive mother I had always been. But Dr. Rivera had helped me understand the importance of boundaries, not just respecting others' boundaries, but establishing my own. So, my reply was compassionate but measured. "I'm sorry to hear that, Marcus. Divorce is painful for everyone involved. I hope you and Lily are doing okay. If you want to talk, I'm here." He didn't take me up on the offer to talk. 2 months later, he sent another email asking if I would consider reinstating the trust now that circumstances had changed. The old Robin might have jumped at this opportunity to reconnect with her son, using the money as a bridge back to his life. But I had grown stronger, more discerning. "The trust funds have been legally transferred to the New Beginnings Foundation," I wrote back. "I've seen firsthand how that money is changing lives for dozens of families. I won't be reversing that decision. However, I am open to rebuilding our relationship if that's something you genuinely want, not for financial reasons, but because we're family." Marcus didn't respond to that email. 3 months later, he reached out again, this time asking if I would be willing to see Lily occasionally. "She asks about her grandmother sometimes," he wrote. My heart ached at the thought of my granddaughter wondering who I was growing up without knowing me. We arranged a meeting at a park near Marcus's new apartment. Seeing Lily, now 5 years old, was both joyful and painful. She was shy at first, hiding behind Marcus's legs, but gradually warmed up when I showed her how to feed the ducks at the pond. By the end of our 2 hours together, she was holding my hand and asking when she could see me again. As we were preparing to leave, Marcus awkwardly mentioned the trust fund again. "I'm struggling financially with the divorce proceedings," he said. "Jasmine's father is using his connections to make things difficult. If there's any way you could help, even temporarily." I looked at my son, the baby I had cradled, the boy I had raised, the man who had rejected me, and felt a complicated mixture of love and disappointment. "I can offer emotional support," I said gently. "I can be a grandmother to Lily. But our financial relationship is over, Marcus. I need you to understand and accept that." He nodded stiffly and didn't bring up money again. Our relationship since then has been tentative, fragile. We see each other every few weeks, usually with Lily as the focus of our interactions. There are moments of connection, glimpses of the close bond we once shared, but also a new wariness on both sides. We are learning to relate to each other as adults, with separate lives, not as the enmeshed mother and son we once were. Through this painful journey, I've learned that love does not require erasure of the self. For decades, I thought being a good mother meant always putting Marcus first, regardless of how I was treated in return. Now I understand that true love, for others and for oneself, requires balance, respect, and healthy boundaries. The money that once represented my devotion to Marcus is now helping dozens of women build stable, independent lives for themselves and their children. When I visit the foundation and see mothers graduating from training programs, moving into safe housing, or celebrating their children's achievements, I know that Thomas would approve. He wanted security for our son, yes, but he also valued kindness and integrity above all. To those of you listening who might be struggling with family estrangement or feeling taken for granted by the people you love most, I offer this hard-won wisdom. Your worth is not determined by how much you give or how much you sacrifice. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do, for yourself and for others, is to stand firm in your own value and require that it be respected. Love doesn't demand that you become a doormat, and sometimes the strongest form of love is having the courage to say no and walk away with your head held high. In the end, my greatest gift to myself wasn't the financial security I built, but the self-respect I finally claimed as my own. What difficult family situation have you faced, and how did you find the strength to handle it? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more real-life experiences that remind us we're never truly alone in our struggles. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes understanding your own worth is the key to healing even the deepest wounds.